Happy Monday night, folks. Welcome to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. Up next is Doc Talk. We're talking fishing tonight, y'all. And the guy that's no stranger to co-hosting the show here with us here lately, Mr. Jimmy Straws, is hanging out here. And we're going to have some special guests swinging in here to kind of help us talk about this. We're going to go all over the place with fishing topics, man, but we'll try to stay focused on the stuff that's season bound here that we have. So let's go ahead and get the Doc Talk fired up here on Monday night. What's happening, folks? We are here and live. TPO Doc Talk Podcast. What's happening, Mr. Straws? How you living?
Oh, living great. Living great. Can't complain.
That's right. We got a chance to get out fishing a little bit earlier late last week? That was all right.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
that was a good time. We got into some pretty good ones, actually.
You smashed yourself a hog. I'm not going to say where we're at. We'll be quiet about that. But that thing was a monster that you found in there. That was fantastic.
And I found another one down the way. It was the craziest thing. That fish was probably in 6 inches of water.
Yeah.
And the craziest part was there was there was a duck swimming the shoreline, right? And I was just like, I wanted to back off away from the duck.
Right.
Just to give him his space, right? Because look, he was trying to feed on some stuff. And I'm like, what is that? Is that a bass? And the bass was here, and the duck swam right in front of the bass, and the bass didn't move. And I'm like, that thing's dead. It's got to be dead. And I flip a jig in there. He tails and noses up, and when he nosed up, his tail was out of the water. It was so shallow.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. 19 and a half, I think he was.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, what is he doing up there? Like, there was nothing there. And a duck.
I got to tell you,
I don't know.
he was planning to eat a duck, yeah, and he decided to go after your jig instead. I'll tell you, that place healed quite a bit for me, man, because I've been going through some stuff with the fishing side of things, trying to get that love back. And there's certain styles and ways I like to fish, and Colorado's not a great place for that. So it felt really good to get into a place that allowed me to kind of fish the way I want to fish. Frogging and flipping, man. That's where it all started for me. That's what made me fall in love with bass fishing is literally frogging and flipping and what comes with that, right? So, yeah, it felt good to find it. I know that bite's not going to last there for very long, but it sure is awesome while it's there, and it'll be some great memories. And like I said, now I'm Colorado rigging now. I'm spending time again just tinkering and working in the garage. I cleaned my garage, believe it or not. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, at least 2/3 of it. I'll give you 2/3 are clean. So. Right.
Enough to organize the fishing stuff, right?
I made room. Yeah. The area where the kayaks and all my fishing and everything goes, that's clean now. So I just got to get the wife's bay cleaned up now. I just got to do that side now. Yeah. Well, cool, man. So yeah, it's summertime, right? Things are I'm hearing we've got like some sort of heat wave on the way. There's a hurricane beating the south end of stuff up. We got, Bassmaster stuff that the elites and everybody kind of slow down, or they head north, I should say.
Yeah.
Everybody goes north, get up to that cooler water, get out of the south, it's a good thing. It protects the fisheries. There's a mortality factor that comes with fishing hot water, big fish, that those numbers go up quite a bit. So here a little bit later, folks, we're going to have some guests stopping by here. If you follow us on socials, you notice we started a pro team. What this pro team here is designed to do is to help the True Patriot Outfitters with getting our mission out there. And these guys volunteer their time, energies, money, knowledge, equipment, They do all kinds of stuff for us, and they help spread the word about what the True Patriot Outfitters is out there doing, what the Romans Warrior Foundation is trying to do with the water and kayak fishing and so forth. And so these group of individuals were hand selected, hand picked, and these guys I owe everything to. Just they have my heart. They have anything that I can ever do for them if we're in a place to do it. So what's cool is I've opened up the door, and we're going to see if how many of those guys are out there and available to crawl through it tonight to
Yeah.
chime in on some of these topics we're going to be talking about, because several of these guys know exactly what we're going to be talking about way better than I do. Half of this shit I had to look up exactly. I thought it was mopping. Nope, it's moping. But
Start cleaning the house, Gene. Get it
one
going.
P, one P, not two, one. I'm gonna look like I'm mopping out there, okay, just
Yeah, I'm
with a
mopping.
fishing pole running around for sure. So what I do, we'll just go ahead and start busting in this. What I happen to still get, and I have boxes upon boxes of these. I'm old school, man. I still get the bass fishing magazines,
Yeah.
and I get an opportunity to go through them, and I've narrowed down to really two that I mainly live on, and that's In Fisherman and Game and Fish. I really like these Game and Fish Midwest edition is one that I've always had coming to me for quite some time. And then of course I'd be remiss. I mean, it comes with a membership, right? The Bassmaster.
Right.
And so this is the one I wanted to actually start this thing off with tonight is the 100 best bass lakes. This year's edition came out here. What's cool is seeing how many of these I've actually been to and had a chance to fish and sucked at. Um, and then the ones that I still want to go to, right?
Yep.
And so we've got another guy that travels around quite a bit. He sees a lot of these lakes from the air. He sees them from the ground, from his kayak, you name it. So let's
He's
go ahead
got
and
the
bring
best drone of them all.
right, and he can basically tell the state parks to shut up. He's got that authority. So let's go ahead and bring this guy in here, Mr. MC Hammer himself, Mr. Matt Collins. How are you, buddy?
What's up, Shane? Thanks for having me. Hey, Jim.
Hey, what's going on, man?
So let's get right to it, man. Top lakes. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see this here. The number one lake, as reported by Bassmaster in the entire nation, is the St. Lawrence River, specifically around Thousand Island, New York, a 50-mile stretch. Oh, look at that. Look at what Matt has.
I just got home and checked the mail, and these are the two things that I actually pulled out. The rest was obviously all junk. So
Page 22 is where we're
Oh.
at, Matt, if you want to follow along.
I didn't get the mail, so I can't follow along.
Right.
But I did do some computer work, and I think we got the same list as you guys, but I don't
Yep.
know. Me on a computer, don't ever trust that. I can tell you that right now.
You know, the top 10, did anything strike you as new, Jim, on this thing? Because to me, it looks, I mean, it's the usual suspects, right? Number 2, O.H. Ivy, Orange Lake, Florida, St.
That one
Clair.
right there. That one right there. What I honestly, I've never heard of Orange Lake, Florida.
Well,
I've
in
never
this
heard of
one,
that.
it does say I just saw Florida. Yeah, I mean, anything in Florida, right, is going to, you
Right.
figure is going to jump up there. But so it was in the top 10 last year, and apparently it's improving. Or I wonder if it's just the downfall of, some of the other areas out there, what's taking place that helped this thing kind of rise to the top. I mean, what do you?
Yeah, the abuse of Okeechobee and St. John's and everything else in Palatka that just gets hammered by the elites and everybody else. I'm sure there's some really good sleepers in Florida. Justin
I mean-
Brickman might have the in on some of that stuff. He's a Florida guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Looks like your Minnesota made the list, huh, Gene? Looked like 10 was Mille Lacs.
Yeah, and I
What
don't
I'm
claim
saying?
I don't claim, too much unless it's good about Minnesota. So yeah, I'll claim that. That's
Well, you
I-
can't claim the Vikings. I can tell you that.
I don't want to claim the Vikings.
No,
I said only good that I'm going to claim.
God.
Like the people, there's several of my fishing buddies. I love them to death. We'll see a few of those guys. Mr. Jason Lovall out there. He's driving truck, no doubt. What's up, Jay?
What's he doing getting reception in a signal? I mean, come on.
Right?
He should be out in nowhere land.
He's got to be watching something as he's driving down the highway.
Yeah, don't look at the road.
He's literally probably in the middle of nowhere. You don't want to look at the road out there.
You don't have to. It just goes straight.
For sure. So Forks in there at number 5. What about
Yeah.
Lake Murray, South Carolina? Lake Erie. Lots of smallmouth fisheries in here, man. Really popping up. Clear Lake from California, which is a bucket list. We have a buddy who lives out there. He's an Air Force, active duty Air Force. Lucas
Yeah.
Snyder. He lives out there now. He's deployed right now, so he won't be back for a while. But when he does, I told him we need to make a run out there to go see him, and he's not too far from these places. He said he'd put us on some fish, so we should make a Colorado road trip, right?
Yeah. I mean, probably the only reason to go to California, in my opinion.
Right?
Sorry.
Pass.
Lord, I apologize. I shouldn't say that out loud on a podcast.
No, I'll echo that 10 times over. So the one I was super excited about was Bussy Break Reservoir, Louisiana.
Yeah.
Last year, All American Kayak Series Championship. We're at Felsenthal Refuge, right there on the border of Arkansas, Louisiana. Our turnout was real low, so we got together with everybody that was in the kayak tournament. We all agreed, let's turn it into a 2-day event. So we did a 2-day event, and then for that day 3, we got like 6, 7, 8, 9 guys together, and we took a run down 30 minutes and jumped on Bussy Break.
Nice.
And then just had an impromptu. This is the first place, by the way, that I've ever encountered a gator on the water, was Bussy Break. And it is just fishy galore. I discovered something at the very end when we were leaving. The frog bite was there. I just wasn't patient enough with it. I was too jumpy with my frogs. But sitting there and just letting that frog dangle for just a couple extra seconds, all of a sudden started producing, man. And I was like, oh, I could have been doing this all day long.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that place won't let you down for sure. I mean,
Every cast is a double-digit possibility. That's the thing. They're all in that water.
MLF was there like last year or a year and a half ago or something. And was that the place where Randy Howell pulled out a 12 and a 10 or something? I think. I don't know. I could be wrong.
That might be. Yeah.
I think Alton Jones Jr., I think he smashed him pretty heavy on that place. I know for sure. Or I'm 98% sure on that one.
Is Bassmaster Kayak Series, they're going to Caddo, but is Caddo and Bussy on this, like the 2 lakes you can fish? I thought there's 2 lakes on the Bassmaster Kayak schedule for the October 19th event. And they're at Caddo, and I thought there was another one that was open. I don't know.
There is another one. I don't remember which one it is, but there are 2 on that one for sure.
I don't think it's Bussy, because Bussy I think is way further east from Caddo,
Okay.
I thought.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, but there's 2 on that event, but yeah, Bussy Break for sure has got them.
So we go a little bit further, yeah, and then of course number 10 on the list, Mille Lacs, right? I mean that's an ocean. I fished a Minnesota State championship there. I made it as a co-angler one of my first years in a bass club, qualified for state and went up there, and yeah, had a miserable experience. I'll say that, but the lake was amazing to look at and see. I wish I would have had a better shot at it. But and then when you live out there, you'd think you'd have all this time to run up there, but it's kind of a haul. Minnesota's a real long state, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, you can drive for 5 hours and still have a couple hours to go before you're going to hit a border. So Central Division, as they start ranking it down there, this is kind of rough because they go from Minnesota to Texas. It looks like they stop at Nebraska, Kansas. We're not considered in the Central Division in Colorado here.
No,
it looks
we're
like
west.
Indiana is what they click off there. But yeah, so you got OH Ivy, Lake Fork, Bussy Break, and Mille Lacs. Those are the top 4 there for the Central. Can you believe that in the West, Colorado doesn't even have a lake in there. Can you believe that?
Now, you know what? About 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe somewhere's around there, they Bassmaster did put Pueblo on the top. You know, it was in the top 100. It was like 80th, but it was the top 100. And I remember the write up saying that the size isn't great, but the numbers are there, which
Right.
I think we all can agree with that. But it was good to see Colorado and Pueblo get a little love out of Bassmaster.
Sure, sure. And I mean, we all have said this and we all know it. It is the best bass fishing lake we have in the state. There's no doubt. And I agree with you guys. I don't think we've even unlocked what that thing has to offer. I
Yeah.
think we've all been doing such similar stuff for so long, but I think coming soon, there's going to be some techniques, and a guy sitting on this screen might be one of them that figures it out. And you know, I wouldn't bet against either one of you two. I'll tell you that when it comes to finding that oddball, you know, bite that's going to be sitting around offshore out there for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to get out there in my kayak and sit in 50, 60 feet in the center of the lake on the old Arkansas River channel and looking at a map, man. I'd be afraid I'd get run over. I mean, even in my bass boat, I'm constantly got my head on a swivel sitting out on Pueblo. I wouldn't even attempt it on a weekend. I'd go out on a Tuesday evening or something and try to stir something up. But I'll tell you, if I lived that close to Pueblo, I would be putting my time in with forward-facing sonar and some of these hovers or strollings or these other techniques that have not been unlocked at those depths down there yet, because the fish are in there. They're in there. I think we all beat the banks. And when I say beat the banks, I'm talking 30 feet and shallower. That's beating the banks here in Colorado, right? I mean, there's not too many guys who put in time from 30 to 65 feet.
For sure. And I'm definitely one of those guys. You say 30 feet to me, and I'm like, if I'm more than a cast away from the shoreline, I'm in deep water to me. You know, it's like, wow, what am I doing out here? I'm drifting away.
Yeah. And you can be from the shoreline one cast away at Pueblo on some of those bluffs and be in that 65 feet of water, right? So,
Right.
you know, that's the whole thing is there's so many options there that you could almost get overwhelmed from so many techniques. It could take you a couple days to really narrow down and find a school. That's the thing with these techniques nowadays that they're using, is you've got to find the schools.
Yep.
Well, and that leads us, that's a great segue. I did want to ask one thing though. Page 68 of the Bassmaster magazine, they start getting into monster worms, monster bass. Now, I've seen this work in the Ozarks firsthand, dude. You grab an 8 to 10 inch worm, you Texas rig it, or you shaky head it, you throw the thing out there, and you haul in 5 and 6 pound bass, dude. You know, so it's one of those things. Hey, there's Bricklin. His ears must have been ringing. He says, "Look at that beard."
Yeah. It's all gray or white. Yeah.
Good stuff. Bricklin, we were just talking about Florida fishing down there. Orange Lake, is that what the name of it was?
Yeah. Yep. Orange. We've never heard of it, Justin. So we were wondering if you've got any input on that place or what. I've never heard of it, and I'm pretty in tune with the bass fishing world, but never heard of Orange Lake in Florida. Makes sense though, right? Orange Lake in Florida.
Right. So yeah, the big worm thing. What about you? You guys you throw big worms? You into that? Does you ever seen it work in Colorado?
Years ago, when Sharon and I fished the American Bass ABA Couple Series out here, we found a bite on the 3 dams with wasn't a large worm. It was just 5-6 inch curly tail, zoom ribbon tail type of worm with a Texas rig on the front. And we were just dragging. I mean, we lost a lot because we were fishing the dam, but we had a year or two where fishing that worm was really, really working very well at Horsetooth. And then there was another sneaky place called Lone Tree Reservoir, which is now private. There was some good ones in there, and I could throw, what were those? Was it Zoom? Jelly worms, were they called? Jelly worms? They were big 10-inch giant, and they had the smell. You could get them in like watermelons and grape and cherry, and they had these weird smells to them. And I used to get the watermelon one in Texas, rig it, and whip it around at Lone Tree.
Jim, I think you were fishing with gummy worms, bro. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna say.
That's what those were.
I think did it say Haribo on the side of them or something?
Yeah, drop shot in the little bear.
Yeah. There you go.
But that's the extent of it. But once, like you said, once again, there in the Ozarks at Truman for the Classic, I had some purple or some June bug ones that I had a pretty decent bite on in practice. Didn't pan out to nothing in the Classic, but I think worms are definitely overlooked here in Colorado. It's a nice skinny profile that I think would attract some of those smallmouth for sure.
That shaky head thing too, man. That's kind of what grabbed my attention to it, is because it's drop shot, it's Ned. I mean, those are the name of the games, right? For pressured fish. But shaky's been known from a lot of years ago to get stuff done.
I could see it working at Trinidad. And the reason I say that, I pulled there's so much grass in Trinidad, and I went back after we had the tournament there the next weekend, camped out, and I was catching walleye that they were loaded with worms inside of them. I mean, in their mouth, it was just full of worms, and I'd never seen them like that. I caught them with crawfish like every cast, but I started catching them with worms on them where I was at. I could see it working. The Ozarks thing is 100%. Jake, my buddy, he actually was live scoping deep and was throwing worms out on big brush piles and hammering them out there. I think he finished second in the tournament a couple weeks ago doing that. But yeah, I haven't really tried it here. So.
Dude, I got some guys out in. First off, I want to give a shout out, Mr. Tim Williams out of Jacksonville, Florida, tuning in, saying that 13-inch curly-tail worm is on fire right now.
That's bigger than the fish we have out here.
13, yeah. I could put that on the board and get some credit for that. Just make sure the mouth is closed.
We sincerely appreciate you tuning in, Tim. Thank you so much, brother. It's good to see we got our Florida connection there on YouTube coming in. That's awesome to see.
Awesome.
Yeah, man, it's, and the guys, my Missouri connection fellas that we have out there, dude, they will tell you throw June bug, and then you throw June bug again. And then if that doesn't work, grab some June bug and get after it. And I've seen it firsthand. I had a co-angler flipping behind me, and no, I don't have scars over this. Flipping behind me on some logs, and he's got this 9-inch worm on or whatever. Could have been 3 foot for all I know. Texas rigged up, and he pitches. I'm throwing my little, my jig into stuff. He throws this thing in, same place I'd thrown in, and horse is like a 5.5 or right out on Lake of the Ozarks, man. Just pulls it into the thing, and I'm just like, June bug, big ass worm. So at that point, while he's netting it and getting it in the live well, I'm digging through like a raccoon in my stuff looking for big worms and shit. Because it was one of those days where I just had co-angler, my co-angler was having a great day. I put him around fish. I just couldn't catch him myself. That was the name of that game for that day. But nevertheless, well, this is a good segue then, because it's going to take us into the next topic I wanted to chat with. And this one really hits right here in Colorado a ton. Because for us, this is normal fishing. For everybody else, they wait for pressured times, hot water times, summer times to come in before they use it. What we're talking about is in the August edition of Game and Fish, the magic of moping. And that's not mopping, although I'll look like I'm mopping. But like I said before, it's 1 P is moping, 2 P's is, whatever, is too much coffee. But moping. Bottom line is, what moping is, according to this article, when you get through and it's been around forever. Literally what you're doing is you're dangling the bait, dead sticking it like 3 to 5 feet above your target. So if you see him suspended in some, in a water column somewhere, or you see him relating to the bottom, you're taking this thing, and what it traditionally has been done is somewhat of what you and I were doing, Jim, up at Horsetooth, which is the vertical drop, right? That's where this really came into play. Old Lindner himself, Ron Lindner, really kind of, came up with this many a moon ago, back when we were just little fry ourselves, probably. And he was dropping, dead sticking right on him vertically. Now with forward facing sonar, different ball game because now you guys can, like Gussie did in 2023 there, now you can cast out to them, right? And if you get good, the hardest part for me, and I'll have you guys chime in because you two are freaking like Obi-Wan Kenobis of this stuff. But the hardest part for me is fighting that urge of moving that damn rod, right? I mean, I want to jig it, I want to pop it, I want to make it look hurt, you know, I want to do something. And they suggest don't, just throw it. And once you've got yourself on your retrieve, once you get it at that area where you want it, leave it be and they'll come to it. You know, they'll come up and strike. Also, don't let it fall past them because a lot of times if it gets past them, they're not interested then. I mean, the science of bass says large or small mouth, they strike up. They don't strike down. That's not how they hunt. They don't hunt downward. They hunt upward. You know, they try to, they're the opposite of the Japanese zero, right? They don't come in with the sun at their back.
Right.
They come in with the lake bottom at their back. Come up. So talk to me. We'll start with you, Straws. I mean, how much of what you have done over in Colorado here is moping?
I've played with the technique a little bit. I definitely have to play around with it some more. It's definitely effective, especially since the drop shot has been so overused here in Colorado. It's getting hammered. Like the old where you could open the bail, use your electronics, and drop down. They're onto that. And then there was a time where you could cast your drop shot out and you could kind of slowly retrieve it back, which is almost the same thing as moping because you're really not dragging that sinker on the bottom. You're just letting it fall through the water column. Literally, it's so deep out here, you could make a cast with a drop shot, click your bail, and just sit there and just let it pendulum right back to you. You know, once again, you got to make sure you're around the fish in order for that to happen. But it is definitely a technique that I can see really working out here really well.
Well, and that's what you just talked about is the whole premises, right? It's normally it's meant for vertical dropping, meaning we have identified, we've marked fish on our sonar, we're right over top of them, and at that point it's basically just dropping right there. You're dropping your bail and letting her fly, and you can watch it either traditional sonar, but now jump into forward facing. Now you can see them 20, 30 feet away. And Gussie maintains even in 30, 40 foot of water, those fish know you're sitting over top of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if they know a kayak's sitting over top of them. Maybe they do. Those of us with trolling motors, I'm sure they've picked up on the electrical, disturbance we've kicked on when we come through. And so at that point, now with that forward facing, you can cast out there. And like you said, you can pendulum because you can actually see them out there.
Right.
Collins, you've been, stretching the boundaries on this stuff and really working this kind of stuff. How much of what you say that you do would you classify as moping?
Well, I think moping, as it's defined, is more of that vertical, and that's where you get into the line of moping, where like Gussie was doing it. I don't know what the circumference around the boat is for the doctrinal like moping, but that's more of your straight up vertical jigging, and I think those guys in Canada are so good with it because that's what they were doing for walleye. It's what they were doing for crappie and everything else. If you looked at, crappie rods back in the day on when they got side scan, would find brush piles. They'd go 2D over on top of them with spider rigs, and they would go just slam crappie, doing the same thing, just a jig, ball head jig, although those were probably, 16th ounce or less. And then they were just suspending over and catching fish that way. It's really the same. But for me, I've expanded it out. There's a time I feel like I do better with the moping more directly under my boat as winter comes around. I did really well. That's at Pueblo over the winter is really the only place I could still fish here in Colorado, but trying around a couple things and that is the more dead sticking, I'm not moving the bait. It's super slow. And then now I'm I used to never really push my live scope out past 50 feet. Now I'm throwing 70 feet.
Dang.
But that's really where that time with it comes. Like they say, time on the water. I think time with your electronics too. You can't just buy the stuff and think you're going to know what 70 feet looks like, or you after you use it a while, you figure out what your distances are, where your line is, and all that, because it is a narrow margin of what you're looking at too is the big thing. And I mean, just think about it. The radius going off, and people look at that from your transducer. Your beam left and right. Let's say 5 degrees or whatever it is. But let's just say your cast is off 5 degrees. Now, if you cast it out 100 yards, now you're 50 feet off to the right or whatever you are. It's compounding the more you go out. So I think that's the big piece is getting your cast accuracy, and that's, I think, the troubling thing for me. People talk about, there is so much skill involved in placing that, whatever it is that you're throwing, placing that right on top of that spot. So but I've had a lot of success with it. It's what I ended up winning Horsetooth with, or Boyd with last year, when they were super finicky and shut down. So
yeah, and like Matt was saying about that scope, when you think you've got that transducer pointed, there's two thoughts of that. You cast out to where you see the fish, and then you see your bait splash in the water, and then you can kind of take the handle and you can kind of look for it, or you can see the fish and you hold your there and you hope you can make that cast within that 8-inch circle on top of that fish. So the way I have found it out, and this is a trick from anybody who follows Josh Jones, who's probably the greatest live scoper on the planet. If you watch him, he's in a bass boat, so he's on the pedal. His sonar never stops. So even when he spots a 6-pounder out in the middle of wherever he's fishing, he's going to throw out to there, and he'll see his bait come down, and he's still scoping as that bait's falling. And the reason he's doing that is if that fish takes off to the left or to the right, because those fish don't always swim at you or away, they're swimming wherever they want. We got to keep an eye on those fish. So the only way to figure it out is to constantly move that and be on it. So when that fish moves to the right, you got to pan to the right. Then you can stay on them again and stay on them again. But here's the deal with that. Try to figure out how to do that while you're on a kayak with one hand in a rod and the other hand on the control, because you're getting blown sideways because there's a 0.5 mile an hour breeze, and still stay on that fish and be within that cast, right? So there's going to be an evolution of some technology is going to come out sooner or later where we can lock on a fish.
And while you guys are trying to figure out a way to do that, I'm over there deciding what flavor of Uncrustable I'm going to mow while I'm going to the next shoreline that I'm going to go fish.
I love it.
Hey, real quick, just want to shout out to some folks that take care of us out there. If you're looking for soft plastics, find yourself, looking for some good drop shotting equipment, or some of our rock lobsters, or anything you like swim baits. Check out Dubro Fishing, Dewey Baits. It is proprietary soft plastic that they use. And for any of you viewers or listeners right now, Camp 10, that's CAMP, Charlie Alpha Michael Papa 10 for 10% off of your order. Throw Camp 10 on there, out at Dewey Baits, Dubro. Those donkey shots, man, I might be getting it wrong, but I think that's the name of it, donkey shot. It's our drop shot bait that we have. The soft plastic, for me personally, is like the perfect between the flexibility, but yet, to stay lifelike, but yet not so that like one fish completely destroys it. Because there's a couple big name brands out there, dude, that it's one fish and done.
Yeah.
And I just, for the price you pay for a bag of those things, I'm like, no thanks. Looky there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One and done. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like, ouch, man, that hurts. We got some people stopping in here. Another one of our team members out here, Mr. Nick Wetherill, the weatherman himself. What's up, fellas? What's up, Nick?
Nick.
Of course, the man, the myth, the legend, Big E, the ogre,
Yeah.
Sugarface.
Big fella, Sugarface. Yes, sir.
Old Freckles, the man of many names,
Freckles.
we shall call him right now, yes. And he's going to chime in for us here. Takeaway: to be good at forward facing, you have to be able to dot a gnat's ass with a jig and pilot a chopper,
That's
for
right.
sure.
Well,
My
then I'm
man.
lucky as hell because I can't do any of that.
I put money on you dotting a gnat's ass, Jim.
I don't know.
Oh,
As
yeah.
long as you got your glasses, yeah, you're good.
I get the glasses, and now I can. Yeah, I'll keep it clean. I was going to go somewhere, and I'm not going to go somewhere. So G-rated, G-rated.
Then our homie here, another member of the team out there, Mr. Trev Stocky. What's up, Trev? Good to
Yeah,
see
he
you,
just got
man.
back from another Alaska trip. I think he's going to move there.
Dude,
Yeah.
that is like movie planet Earth quality stuff he's putting on socials, man. That is some gorgeous, gorgeous footage he's sending back. That's awesome.
For sure.
Good stuff. Well,
So,
cool,
so
man.
speaking of that moping, real quick, you know,
Yeah.
when you and I, Gene, went to that place we went to last week, there was a lot of grass in that lake, as you know, right? I mean, some of it was literally that far under the water. You could get out to 10 feet and you could have 5 foot of grass and 5 foot of water. So
Yeah.
I was trying to play around with electronics and mess around with not drop shotting, but sort of like moping. I had it was just a Kitech, standard Kitech with a ball head on it. And the wind was drifting me down a little bit, right? And it had me sideways. So I switched my forward facing sonar to down, live down, which if you're not familiar with it, it takes you about 15 feet forward. It takes you about 15 feet back. Okay. So as I was moving down and the wind was blowing me, I literally turned my sonar facing forward so I could see what was coming up. And
Right.
then I threw on the other side of my kayak and I could see my jig on the other side of my screen.
Oh,
What
good
that
stuff.
allowed me to do is I could literally look at my screen, and as the trees were there, I could literally have the brush when they were in sections. I could literally watch my jig come up. I could pull it over, let it drop down. And I was literally just drifting, looking at the screen and looking at the grass and the height and just literally pulling up and over it and up and over it. And I don't know if you saw it, but there's a bazillion perch in that place. And I could find
Yeah.
schools of perch just following my lure. So, but it was cool to find a technique that I don't know if anybody's ever, I'm sure someone's done it, but I'm going to get into that a little more where I'm drifting using my forward facing sonar and looking behind my screen at old images and old information to guide myself up and over structure, cover, and stuff like that. So I'm going to work on that a little bit. I think we could unlock some stuff. That's where it would play deep at Pueblo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good stuff. You know, and this kind of takes us to, rolls into this. One of the was which episode? Which this is July's of the In Fisherman here. It gets into bass vision, something we've known. I've heard about this. I've seen this before. Bass, as far as largemouth go, the receptacles that they have, the cones in their eyes, they can only transmit or see reds and greens. Okay, they don't have the cones to see other colors. This has a scientific name, and I forget what the name of it is. Something science name vision. And people can also,
Dr. Gene.
well, I mean, I have watched half a season of ER, so, but I've watched a shitload of Discovery Channel, and so. But no, so there's a name for it that's out there, and people can actually have this same kind of vision. So you can actually see filters. There's a filter you can throw on to show you. What's this? Hang on, I see. We're getting some comments coming through. Let me see. See you boys venturing to different lakes and big bass vegetation, lots of perch. Jason Potter used to fish there. And then my man Eric saying, "Knowing Bass, get the book." So he's got apparently that talks about this as well. But the bottom line is there's a filter out there that you can get that shows you what the colors of your lures look like to the fish of what they could see. But now what it doesn't circulate, this is the part that starts to confuse people a little bit because they think it's just that much of a scientific answer and that it's, one and done. Here's the problem with it, folks. Now introduce water. Now introduce all kinds of color spectrum in the water and sunlight or the lack of sunlight, shadows. You start doing this, and now it's going to start changing things up. And that piece there is where, it still goes to this here. The in the tackle industry, there's two types of baits: those designed to catch fish, and those designed to catch fishermen. And that it really boils it down. But there is something that is at play when we were talking. There's something in play that why is it then? Do smallies have the same kind of vision? I wonder. I'm assuming they do. They share the same type of receptors. But the piece that comes in is why is it then that bright colors smallmouth turn into like Smeagol from Lord of the Rings? I mean,
Yeah.
they freaking love chartreuses and bright reds and these other, like orange for that matter. I mean, they love bright colors, man. They come after it, be it topwater, be it a jig head, be it soft plastics, whatever the case. So what do you think is on a play with that? Why? Any thoughts?
Well, smallies love green. Smallies love chartreuse. They go like you said. That's cracked for them. And I don't know why, but I had a great subspecies of.
Eric, you win the internet.
That's right.
The Boyd bass. Yeah, the Boyd bass.
So I've got an example from the last outing I had out at Pueblo. I've done real well on these baby Z2s. This is what they are, and any of these baits, really, the tail just goes crazy, right? And it's elastic, so it's just kind of hanging up there. So that's kind of the juice. It's just a ball and minnow. But this color, it's like a smelt color. So I was throwing this out. I threw white out. I threw another type of different smelt color. Then I threw this. And I don't know. Bright green, right? And it's called Siren. It's super bright. And I got smashed on this thing. And every school of fish I went to, I kept trying something else. Only thing I could get hit on was bright green. It's the first day in Colorado where I've had it that much, where it's that much on color. Because I was kind of like, does it matter? Mattered that day. And I don't know. Pueblo's really high right now. And because they're doing some construction past the dam still. So it's even higher than the last tournament. So it was higher. It's stained for Colorado. It's not stained. It's still clear for everywhere else, but it's stained for us. And I wonder if this mattered just enough where it was like, I've got maybe 4 or 5 feet of visibility instead of 20 now, where it's something they just went after. But I don't know. I know there's studies on it, but it got me to think that it's at least a difference to them to strike it.
Yeah. So I've got some topwater. I got a Spook Junior and then a full-on Spook, and one of them is I'm trying to remember the olive something, and it's got the chartreuse, it's got the orange in it, and it's designed specifically to go hunt smallies. And when we were at Trinidad, my golden day of the day before the tournament, type thing. That thing was just smallies were coming, like I think they came up from New Mexico up there to come and bite it. It was insane. And the next one I threw was had those same on the nose. It had the same coloring on it, but the back end was translucent, right? One of the things that you learn, topwater is definitely something that's close to my heart, and I've spent a lot of time working with it. One of the things you want to do in clear water is get as translucent or as chrome as you can, when it comes to that super, super ridiculously clear water. You're hoping for a little bit of chop if you can, but the bottom line is they're going to get a real good view of your bait. So, if you're especially if you're killing it and looking at it. But again, the smallmouth just can't resist those bright ass colors, man. They just my precious themselves right off, with that thing. The one of them that I just bulldogged me right into the weeds. He grabbed it and was gone, and wanted to take it home. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. But in topwater, it's the time, right? It's especially now. Topwater smallmouth at the right time of day. You should be on those. You should be able to find those long ass points. You should be able to find them coming up. If you got good clear water, they'll hit you from 10 foot down.
Yeah.
They'll come racing up to get to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And we've always known, and I've always read at least, that smallmouth are more sight feeders than largemouth are. So, they've tested that and they've known that. What I wonder is, particles, microscopic organisms, stuff that's decaying in the water. How does that reflect the light? Like
Right.
the place you and I were at, Gene, what was coming up from the bottom and decaying was very brown. So
Yep.
I'm wondering if light penetration refracts color different than like at a Pueblo, where it's more of a green-ish type of algae or decaying, and then you go to our favorite place, Boyd, and that looks turquoise, right?
Right.
So there's 3 lakes within 150 miles of each other with 3 absolute different colors. The penetration of the light and what those fish see in each one of those lakes has got to be different.
Right.
I mean, I don't follow a lot of the biology stuff just because I take it with a grain of salt, because it's humans
Yeah.
kind of deciding what they think a test says. When I'm big on line. I don't care if you used 0 pound line. Fish can see. Will see your line.
Yep.
To me, that's a marketing ploy to get you to buy something more than another.
Right.
In my
right.
opinion, those fish see your line. Trust me. I don't care if you're using 2 pound line. They're going to see your line.
So here's a long way to go to this, but this, it's you start to think that sooner or later, these fish will, pick up. They become conditioned. I've actually watched a guy that studied bass for 30 years. Did a seminar. I watched it, as a webinar, and he maintained the simple fact that the best that they can determine is that the largemouth bass has 15 minutes of retention memory. After that, it starts to fade and go away. But yet we've seen where bodies of water and fish get conditioned to certain things that they avoid. And Jim, you brought this up a while ago, which I'm actually starting to really buy into this. I wasn't too sure if you were just smoking the devil's lettuce or where you were coming from this, but you said about the weekend, like the fish almost seem to know in Colorado when it's the weekend. And it's not just as simple as traffic triggers it, because it's early in the morning and they almost know when there's something that's taking place, because you can fish during the week, it's fantastic, and then Saturday hits, what the hell happened? And it's a really odd situation that I have zero answers.
Pattern.
What I'm hoping for is that pretty soon these Colorado fish are going to be so conditioned to the drop shot that they have no choice but to bite my crankbait that I'm buzzing by their goddamn face. They start to reverse, right? They start to go back around the other direction. Because so finicky fish, you downsize, you become more finesse. What the hell did we finesse more than what we're doing already? I mean, what's the next evolution to go below that?
A drop shot of raisin. I don't know. Like, what is it? Like,
We're back to gummy bears.
Well, for instance, we got these fish arrow, right? The Japanese bait. It's called a fish arrow. And believe it or not, there is a hook on that. You can probably see the hook.
Yeah.
What in the world are we trying to catch with this little bait? You think, no wonder we got 8 inches on the board and guys are coming up with 54 inches and taking a win.
You know what? I just saw something funny. I got a comment for Chen. So Chen joked about what did he say? Drop shot and a crankbait.
Yeah. Drop crank.
Yeah, Berkeley finisher. Berkeley finisher.
There you go.
I mean, that's pretty much what they're doing, right? Because it just drops straight on them. It's just heavy. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's crazy. But I think we're probably gonna get into it later with like the different types of jig heads and stuff. But
no, go ahead.
Wait. Well, I was
No,
gonna say, I think there's one of the things with these fish is you have to pick out the right. It's not just so when you get the fish, they know what's going on, but it's not just, hey, we're going to pick out something that gets down to their depth and leave it there, and we don't move it, because the time of year when you like a lot of these fish move, and the guys that are really good at catching fish, like if you watch the elites with Taku, he's not going after just a fish that's staying still. I think it's way harder on a kayak to kind of chase these schools because they're moving around. And these guys that are on the boats, like I wish for a Bassmaster for a series, they would just have the camera boat off about 100 yards and you would see how much they're moving as they're chasing the school around
Oh
to
man,
get
boat
to get that
management's
one
huge.
to get that one. But because in the wintertime, you drop on them with something heavier, like a half ounce even, or I like 3/8, but I'm dropping straight down. Those fish, they're not moving at all. But now, like watching these guys on the elites, they're chasing, or Josh Jones, like you're saying, chasing single fish with giant swim baits and hover rigs and stuff as well. But the way that those guys are moving around, you have to have a different. Now you're thinking about, okay, you're not only like matching the hatch on whatever your presentation is. Some guys are throwing bigger minnow style baits or smaller stuff for smallmouth and stuff, but now you've got to match. How long's my shank on my hook? Am I doing just a ball head jig? Do I need something that's weighted differently to there's so much more to it, and that's where I think it's like crazy cool to get into. So my favorite jig head this year is this Great Lakes Finesse. It's just a ball head jig. And I think this is maybe a 1/4 ounce. I had some that were way smaller, super small shank on it. Goes really well with like with a baby Z2. You can kind of see it does still stick out quite a bit. There would be the hook for it, but you can upgrade. The thing on the jigs where you're saying, hey, am I going to move my rod or not? Watch Taku, and the farther you throw out, the more you're going to move your rod. That's how I do it. So if I'm going straight under the boat, then I'm not moving the rod much. If I go out way far, now I'm twitching that rod like crazy, and then I'll show you what I'm using for that.
We got Eagle Claw Trocar in the house here talking about your hook there that goes well with communism. We're looking for American made only, baby.
I know. Well, I'll get to it because I got one right here. This is my favorite hook. That's my favorite jig because I haven't poured these, but this is my favorite hook. I think it's the 570 Trocar. Eric will correct me if I'm wrong here, but you don't even need to set the hook on this thing. It slams them. And then I've been playing with these, and the reason I'm playing with them isn't for the hook on it. It's for the way the weight's on it. These are called range rollers. A lot of guys are using these with like the freeloaders and that type of thing. But if you look at it, just looks like a ball head jig. But you see that? Do you see that lead at the front of it?
Yeah.
Let me see.
Yeah, somebody mispoured it and they go, "Oh, this is a great idea."
So yeah, so you don't have that. I'm terrible at this camera thing here, but you don't have. You've got. It looks like they mispoured in front of it, and what it's doing is it's hydrodynamically or whatever they call it, not aerodynamic, but hydrodynamically, it's making that jig head move side to side more. So you probably don't need to put as much action on the jig, but I'm twitching that thing. The farther I go out, my rod is shaking the whole retrieve back pretty much. And I'm just trying to get that. I'm trying to get this to happen, where it's just moving, shimmying side to side. Wheeler does it all the time. Taku does it. Yeah, loop knot. That's another. Yeah,
that's what you want to throw that on that head right there. The Sakamata shad.
That's the Sakamata shad
coming off the side, catches that water and automatically. Yeah, that's the key. Pair that bait that I got with that jig head.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to watch. And you know what? Everything we've read over the years that we thought we learned, because I've had sponsorships in the past and I've done seminar speaking, and we go through our routine and we try to teach people, and we're doing nothing but teaching people stuff that we've experienced and knowledge that we've learned. And with forward facing sonar now, a lot of the stuff that we used to say is the way to do it is not necessarily the way to do it. So
Yeah.
we're forward facing sonar is teaching us as anglers, and I'm sure it's got to be helping biologists understand behaviors of fish. Because like you said,
So-
Dean, early in the podcast, you got to be above them. You got to be above them. Man, I don't know how many times when I was drop shotting 5 years ago on my bass boat, that bait would come straight down. That smallmouth would see it, and he'd go, "Vroom," and I could count down. He'd hit it right past him. So I'm like, I don't know, but there's something to it. You watch it all the time. They're feeding up. But for years, I could get past them. They'd swim down. They'd still eat it.
Yeah, they for sure will track stuff. I think the point is like for instance in a river, when you have current, okay, fish don't sit with their ass into the current. Okay, when they're holding in current, their nose is in the current. So if you have baits coming, from downstream upstream, the chance for the fish to put an early eye on that thing is much less than if it's coming with the current.
Right.
It's things like that. And here's what I want to get to. I want to ask you guys honestly this before we go too far down in the weeds with this. We're still relatively pretty damn early with this forward-facing sonar and all these new finesse tricks that are going on out there. And I'm going to tell you, to an old guy who likes to put 50-pound braid on his line and sling frogs around and get the nickname of Jerkenstein because I'm sitting there dropping a walking bait through the water and I'm repping leaves and everything else that as I go through this. And you guys are sitting here talking about when I get the bait to roll just to the side like this. Because if I don't do that, I'm not going to catch a fish now? Are we really maybe going too sciencey with it this early? I'm just being a devil's advocate here. Or have we already determined that we're thinking that this is the unlocking of the new fish that we're finding out there? Because one or two elites, 3 or 4 or 5 years out there. Look, I watched the stuff with Berkeley there. What was the flatworm? 2 guys win 2 events back to back on flatworms. Berkeley can't keep them in stock, right? Now everybody's got a same version of a flatworm. Miraculously, it's not killing anymore. All the fish in the U.S. did not get conditioned to flatworms overnight.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering is, could we be jumping ahead here with the science side of this? Because in one breath we're saying we don't trust the science for here, but yet we're trusting it this way. So, what do you see where I'm going with that? It's like, are we counting our eggs here, or what do you think, Jim? You started off, and then let Colin chime in on this.
I think there's some truth to what you say, whatever. But in my heart, what I do is there's nothing like fish behavior, fish patterns, and the fishing, like Iconelli says, fishing the moment. That wiggle might be the deal. And like Matt said before, when he goes out to Pueblo in the wintertime, he knows that those fish are grouped up and he can drop down on them. The reason why is those fish are in 50-degree water. They know it's winter. And instead of moving horizontal, fish move vertically in the winter. So I'm not even going to employ a strolling technique in the winter when I know that those schools will move vertical in the water column. So it's a lot of seasonal pattern, fish behavior, and then finding fish on your electronics, casting to them, seeing how they react, and then you countering that action to create a reaction.
Right.
If that makes sense. So I'm constantly, I don't think that's like, oh, now we got to all do this. What we don't see the elites doing is constantly making minute adjustments with their bait. Like Matt said, the rock to straight. Is it a fork tail? Is it a pointy tail? Is it a jiggly? Is it just what is it? And how do you break that down? That's the problem I have, is there's so many things going on with baits. How do we have time in 1 day of practice or 2 day of practice to really dial in exactly what that fish is? And that's why there's always someone going to be on them, because there's 50 of us fishing a tournament everybody's doing something a little different, even though we're doing something very similar. Somebody's doing something different, and they found that little something that the fish want at that moment.
Well, and here's allow old guy to throw some juice out there for those of you watching that perhaps maybe not understand this. What Jim just asked is how do we do that inside of a couple days of practice? You don't. You just flat out don't, because there is no shortcut. There's no substitute for time on the water, man. You've got to be out there, and that's one of the things. If you look at the guys that do well in our tournaments here in Colorado and do well, they're guys that are not just out for practice. They're guys that they get out fishing. They go fishing and they go fishing, and when they're done fishing, they plan their next going fishing. Then they go practice for a specific purpose. It's that time on the water where you build up that confidence in a certain bait or a certain technique. Then you can come deploy it come tournament day. I say this from a lot of experience of being able to be there before, and now in the absence of that, I was feeling it hardcore because I wasn't going out for fun. I wasn't going out to try new things, and so now I'm making it a point, and my wife is backing me, my play on this, that, it's time to get back out there again and start enjoying this and learning this stuff. But yeah, you can't try new techniques in practice and expect to get comfortable with them, right?
Yeah,
Because
no, I agree.
that'll burn you, because you'll go back to your same three confidence baits like every single time
Yep.
the
Yep.
moment you spin. But
What
all
have
right.
you noticed, Matt? Have you noticed anything as far as, fish changing or sticking to one thing or another?
Yeah, but I would agree with what both of you guys just said. I think the reason, yes, it's new, but I think that this is real-time data that we're collecting right now. This isn't on the water. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to get at, Eric, is this is real-time data where before we were looking at our old charts, we were looking, I'm going to go down. I can't see what this fish is actually doing. I know that I got bit because there were fish over a spot, and then I can make a lot of assumptions on what that fish did. Right now, I can cast out and I can see exactly what that fish did. Why does that fish, when all the other ones stay on the bottom, why did he scream up 20 feet and smoke that bait? Or, not even that, but on 2D, I guess on 2D you could, distinguish fish from each other, walleye, crappie, bass.
Yep.
But I can tell what type of bite I'm about to get. Now, when I see a walleye, because walleye do this weird thing now where they kind of get vertical, they come up and they spin on it, where a bass will just shoot on it. And I can tell the difference, I would say, at least 70% of the time on if it's a bass or a walleye now. But
Real quick, are you running the 34 or the 32 transducer?
The 34.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
I
on
have a
32,
32. I have a 32 still.
on 32s, I was just seeing dots. I wasn't seeing full fish.
Oh, well, it's not the fish that I'm seeing. It's how they're acting is what I'm seeing.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of what I was going to get at is the data that we're collecting is real time. So I am able to process, even regardless of what the science says or what anybody else says, I can be the judge of it myself on the water, throwing something out and seeing what they do. Because no one's going to go throw a jerk bait until they have a good day on a jerk bait. No one's going to go throw top water all day until they get that first buzzbait hit or frog hit. And then they're going to want to throw it all day long. It doesn't matter what bait it is. And if you find a way to catch fish, you're going to invest into whatever technique that is. I think that's why people are so interested in this. They're seeing how these fish are reacting, and they're like, okay, when I do this, the whole thing of keeping the bait over the top, when this was coming out, you're watching the pros or listening to podcasts, everyone's saying, well, you got to keep it on top of them. Well, I didn't know what that meant. Do I just keep it right on their nose, like right above them? Because I've watched them before on downscan, just follow my drop shot. The whole school comes up, they follow it down, and then I get bit. So why do I have, like you were saying, Jim?
Yep.
But now I can see what that number is now for me. And it changes, based on the fishery and the fish, the time of year, the conditions. Do I need to have that right on top of them? Do I need to keep it 5 feet above them? And I don't know what it is about, where we are on it, how much farther it's going to go. I think it's going to go a ton farther. And when you started seeing Scott Martin win up shallow on it, now you see guys they're going to win flipping on this stuff. I think we just cracked the can open on this, but I think the amount of data we're collecting every time we go out is so much more that's why the guys that have it, and that, like you're saying, time on the water, these pros that have 4 or 5 screens on the front of their boat or 4 transducers running different directions and stuff, they've changed that through 1 year of having 1 screen or 1 transducer to now having 3 and 4, because they've seen how much data they can collect while they're out there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that there's a long ways to go on this, but it's not going anywhere.
You made some extremely valid points in that whole piece there. And like you said, man, it's once you get that, it doesn't matter what the bite is. Once you find a way to catch fish, you want to stay with it, right?
Yeah.
And keep digging. So that's, I mean, and not for nothing. I actually, when I first saw this, the first thing that I saw with forward facing sonar, I imagined being able to put that thing in perspective mode and looking under docks to see what docks were going to be producing better and what ones weren't. I mean, that's basically the whole point that I was interested in with it. But since selling it and getting rid of it, I have a little bit of buyer's remorse, but at the same time, I go back to that going, I'm not ready to stick on this again and start going to that kind of bite yet. Because I know there's other ways to catch it, and I know my 2D and my side scan and everything is there. I just need to, utilize it better for that finicky bite, right? That's the bottom line for me, is that put me in the swamp. So like I said, I'm looking forward to All American Kayak Series, going to La Crosse in August, right after the Minocqua event. Minocqua end of the month, and then we've got La Crosse in August. Yes. Beep, forward facing sonar. Because I'm gonna have forward facing.
He's rubbing his legs together like a fly.
I'm gonna have forward facing frogs and forward facing jigs.
Well, else. my wife, she's still every time forward facing sonar is abbreviated FFS, and she thinks that it means something very different.
Oh yeah, in geek speak, it means sake.
Yeah, for something's sake. Yeah. So she's like, "What are you saying?" Yeah, I just avoid.
Well, I still say
that active target data is pretty clear, apparently.
Yeah.
But like Matt was saying, and you're saying, Gene, I think ultimately, my opinion is understanding what makes a fish tick. What makes them, when that fish is swimming along and you throw something down on top of him and he turns around, he swims away from it. Why did he swim away from it? If you can repeat that again and that fish is swimming along and you throw it down to him, when he starts to take off, do this real quick and see if he turns and looks at it. You've changed something in his thought process. You've created the millions and eons of years of him being a predator. Those are the things that I think is knowledge that, if you're going to read books on anything on how to catch a fish, I don't care how good you are with a bait, 20 baits, or 1 bait. If you can understand what makes a fish tick, what their predatory instinct is, how you can change their reaction, because I've done it. I've seen fish swim away from my bait, and then I change a bait, I change the size, I change the flash, and I change how much action I'm giving it, and I can change those fish right there. It's the same school, but all I did was change presentation because I understand what makes them tick. And I think that's why Matt is so good, and he's come so far in such short amount of time, is think about what he does for work. Like, you fly in the dark. You can land objects in the dark. You understand electronics. You understand what you're seeing. You understand the data. You know how to adjust that. When situations come up at your work and you got to do this, when this happens, I do that. When this happens, I do this. It's the same thing with fishing. Understanding how to counter react what you're seeing on that forward-facing sonar is what's going to get you bit.
I mean, I don't want to brag or anything, but you said land objects, in the dark. I mean, I wake up a lot in the middle of the night with no nightlight on, and I find it, I hit the little ring every time,
That's your theory. Ask the wife if you hit the ring.
We used to joke around. We always joke around with the Navy guys and be like, "Oh, we're gonna go insert a SEAL team real quick," you know. So that was our joke. Some guys will get that.
Right.
I got a question for both of you guys. So as we get more, as Ford Phase Tournament is not going anywhere, do you see, because we are limited on real estate in a kayak, two questions for this. The first one is, do you see guys ditching the double screens and going to one big screen? Because I've noticed that having a 9-inch, it's lacking when I look at guys with even just a 10. But the bigger is obviously the better. You know, the guys are using the NBTs and everything now. And then my second question is, you see guys starting to run where I think the Bass rules for Bassmaster is it's one motor. So
Yep.
you have to choose, because I love it. I hate when the wind is, when it's just changing, you know, when it's just varying light breeze. Because when I'm on a spot lock, now I have to move my transducer beam that much more to find it. If I have um, if I have like a 5 knot wind coming at me, that spot lock's going to put me into the wind, and I don't have to move my transducer as much. So I hate variable winds.
Yep.
I'd rather have a stronger wind until it's not safe, you know. But do you guys see, one, people ditching down to one screen so it's bigger, and then two, maybe running like the NKs early season when it's more of a bank beater during the spawn, and then throwing on, you know, the old slow spot lock motor later in the season?
I'll take the motor question for sure. I'll leave Jim for can have them both or the electronics. But the motor, my feeling on this is somewhat cynical, but also very dialed in. Why the traditional trolling motor companies have not committed and invested into the kayak game is still beyond me. And I have a feeling it boils down to the cell phone technology. The next 4 advancements in cell phone technology are sitting on a shelf somewhere waiting to go out because they know they can sell the old crap for a long time here and keep making money. But why no one has stepped up to challenge Motor Guide in the XI3 department is still just baffles me. Because not for nothing, uh, it's a good motor. It does all right, but I hear a lot of people talk about the inaccuracy of that GPS and the jogging. I've had it literally sitting on the other end, sitting in an eddy at Okoboji. There was a water current coming underneath this bridge, and I was sitting in the eddy, and this thing decided just to pull me right out into the current. And next thing I know, I'm like, what the heck? It did it all on its own, and I think the bridge had something to do with it. But bottom line is, why Garmin? Why Minn Kota? Why somebody, Joe's Crab Shack, hasn't stepped up to say, here's a kayak motor, bang. It baffles me because you're right. I think people are going to go to the point of understanding that there's a time and place. Where I go at Stanley Lake, I don't have any problem saying it. You can't run a trolling motor in a good third of this lake, so you have to paddle in. So to me, taking the XI3 out there is pointless. I'll run that NK 180 off the back end and I'll fly over there, in a hurry, get in, and then I'm paddling in. When I'm in La Crosse, I'm going to be running that NK 180 because I'm going to be back in the swampiest swamp that ever swamped. And I want that breakaway thing on the tail end. And when I get weeds, I just pull the cord up, hit the motor, and throw it all over the back of my neck, and then just keep going, in there. And I don't have to worry about all extra stuff on the front. So yeah, I think we'll see more and more application-driven stuff. Having said that, you guys in your Hobies out there don't really need to. They've got that pedal drive system that pretty much acts like a spot lock if you're willing to sit there and duka on it. If you're That's what they run the big motor behind. It's not as comfortable, but I've seen a lot of guys. That's how they seem to they live on that. And
That's me right here.
yeah.
I mean,
So
I set my kayak up this year for the NK 300 on the back, and I bought the mounting plate, and I ran the wires. I did everything. I had the plate on the front. I was going to, when we went to Horsetooth, like you said, Matt, I was going to put the spot lock on. And then when I went to Red Willow and Atta State, I wanted to go to point A to point B. I knew I was going to be shallow. I didn't want to start blowing out fish with a spot lock in 3-4 feet. So I was going to use that. But then once again, like Gene said, with the particular kayak I run, having that nose control, I don't feel like I need spot lock. And once again, like Gene said, I was not sold on the XI3. I was definitely sold on the Motor Guide Tarova, but I didn't want to dump $2,000 on a trolling motor that I'm only going to use 2 or 3 times. And I'll be honest with you, spot lock to me, I played around with it. It's great if you're fishing over a brush pile or a pile of rock that's holding fish. But if you're at Pueblo and you're chasing pelagic fish such as smallmouth or spots and they're constantly moving, I've got to be able to make those adjustments and follow those fish and be able to scope them. So I don't know. Let me ask you this, Matt. Do you put your forward-facing sonar transducer, is that on the shaft of your trolling motor, or is that off to the side?
No, it's off to the side. It's separate. And I think that you're right. There's only one company that's really invested into kayaks, and that's Minn Kota, that owns, Johnson Outdoors owns everything there, Minn Kota, Humminbird, and Old Town. So that's the reason that Old Town has that motor in there with spot lock.
But Minn Kota's only invested in Old Town. Minn Kota's not invested in the rest of us out here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I think if you're smart as a motor company, you're right. If they were smart, they would realize Drew Gregory gave this stat out once, and I think I'll probably butcher it, but I think it was something like less than 10,000 bass boats are going to be sold this year. But there are over 100,000 kayaks or something like that. So I'm going to run 2 minutes. Nice. The point I'm trying to make is if you look at the overall sales and the overall growth, like the bass fishing for boats, the growth there versus the growth in the kayak market, it's not. I mean, the Army is considering throwing someone on a kayak to go and represent them right now. That says, like, and they've got a couple guys doing the MPFL. That says like how big the sport has grown. Thanks people for 20 years pushing it. It's now getting that much traction. If people in these motor companies wise up, they'll realize that, it's the Walmart effect. They're going to sell more goods and they're going to make more money because of that than putting, a $5,000 trolling motor on a Bass Cat, because you're only going to sell, how many of those are they going to sell a year versus a 55 thrust, whatever for a kayak. I think the reason you're going to run into things is when I had the XI3 on the Hobie that I had, and I had the 12, I think the 14s are fine, but I was taking so much water in because it's not designed for it. It makes it a lot top heavier.
Yeah.
And then what you were saying, James, with now you're chasing fish, you're constantly on the remote trying to chase them around.
Yep. I
think Old Town was smart enough to say, okay, these are some things that they saw, and they came out with it around the same time that you had motors coming out for the XI3s were coming out. But I've got pedal steering on that thing. I never thought I would use it. I'll never get a kayak without pedal steering, for the reason of being able to chase fish around.
Yep.
I could use my pedals, turn right and left. My trolling motor also kicks up like a kick up feature on a if I hit a stump. There's kill switches there. There's a lot of safety things that are there. I don't know what we'll see at ICAST this year. I don't know if we'll see something or not, but I would presume that whether it's there or later, you're gonna see motors integrated in kayaks so much more. The Titan X did it with putting batteries in certain places. Yep. It's coming. I just don't know if the kayak market.
It's cutting a shaft down, right? That's all they got to do. Cut the damn shaft down to 36 inches and let's go.
Well, you paid for that. Ask Josh Gardner. Josh Gardner paid $2,000 for his trolling motor, and then he had to pay $200 to go get it cut down because it would void the warranty if he did it. So he's into $2,200 for a trolling motor, and he hasn't even bought a $600 battery yet. So that's $3,000. I mean, his kayak lists for $1,800. right? Because it's a paddle. He
Yep.
doesn't have it's the
Oh, yeah.
129. Great platform, and he's kicking our ass with it this year, and he's doing a great job with it. But yeah, the industry needs to come up with something. I mean, God, if they could put a representative to just deal with the kayak industry and have a kayak division of Johnson Motor. And they don't even have to deal with, train this guy to know about the trolling motors and the power poles and all. Just get a kayak guy out there and move product. Like, get input from somebody. I'm not the smartest guy, but I tell, if Johnson Motors came to me and wanted to work with me, I could help design something pretty kick-ass for the kayaks.
I think the biggest thing that they're going to have to get over is the proprietary pedal drive systems for each of the different. But I mean, you could get some sort of adapter that fits into each well and drops in. But Old Town's the only one that invested in actually having the wirings built in, the steering is built in, everything is built into the actual whole. You don't have to go and do it yourself. Oh God.
Yeah, it does.
Oh,
Yeah, it does.
Oh God. No,
Eric, when you get your podcast up, Eric, please tell us where it's at, brother. Or anytime you want to come on this show, he is gold.
Yeah, I think there are so many benefits to throwing that motor a little bit back of the bow, that 3 feet back of the bow. It rides better. It holds better on GPS. You're not, because you got to think, when it's all the way up front there, you can still be sliding around. I wouldn't put a motor in front of my kayak. You hit a tree at Truman and you rip a prop off versus kind of seeing that or having the ability to kick it up. There's so much innovation that needs to come on that. And I think that's probably why people have the stern mounted options so much more. But I think it'll get there. I don't know.
But here's the key, I think, though, from being in the basketball world, and Gene can attest to this. We got a 250 horsepower, $25,000 motor on the back of our boats. We use that to go to point A and point B. And then the next thing we do is we get up on the front of the boat and we control the nose of the boat. Yep. So controlling the nose of your kayak, for me, in my opinion, is way more important than controlling where I'm going, so to speak. So that's why I feel, in my situation where I run the Hobie PA 360, I would be totally not running the NK 300 on the back if I had any other kayak than the 360. And the reason I say that, and I'm not trying to promote anything here, is with that 360, I can take the nose of my kayak, I can turn that 360, and I can push the nose over wherever I want. So now all I need is rear propulsion to get me to the point. With any other system, you've got to turn to make that nose make that quick adjustment. So for me, I don't know. If I was in a different brand kayak, I would probably go with some sort of bow mounted trolling motor, just because of the control of the nose. That keeps you safe. It keeps you pointed into the waves. It dictates where your forward facing sonar is looking. Everything is based off of nose control of a kayak.
I went through a long period of time of I had a very good buddy that was he's a smallmouth whisperer out in Minnesota, and he taught me, Christopher, if you're out there, brother, this was one of the lessons he taught me, which was boat positioning. Pull up on a main lake point, pull up on a structure. You're fishing it this way. Move the boat, come at it from this way, and all of a sudden now you're catching fish where you weren't over here. Boat positioning is everything, and so I went through a lot of years of really drilling that in my head, almost to the point now where I actually get almost OCD in the kayak, because you got to accept the fact that you're going to move around.
Yep.
I want to come up on a target. I'm a big target fisherman. If I see a transition, if I see a stump, I see trees, I see whatever, I want to cast a certain way. I have my technique and everything, and then the wind blows me, and I can still cast right there, right? It's still there. But now that my kayak is facing this way, inside my head is alarms going off like, this is not right. You need to move back. And so I'm learning to back off of that a little bit. But in the same regard, bow mount for me, when it comes to dissecting a brush pile or a weed bed or isolated pads or vegetation of some kind. To me, the bow mount is just the ultimate because it's muscle memory for me. It takes me back to the boat days,
Yeah.
and I feel comfortable. But I will say, learning curve, fun, and efficiency of getting point A to point B. That Newport, man, is everything. I love that motor.
Yeah.
It's so fun to. Um,
So
Yeah.
let me answer Matt's second part of his question if we've got time for that. He mentioned about, guys running 2 graphs. Does he feel that that's important?
yeah.
I almost want to say something, but I don't want to say nothing because it's going to kind of let the cat out of the, not the cat out of the bag, but once again, you got to understand that each person on this screen right here and every person watching has their own style of fishing. It all beats the shit out of my Cheerios float tube.
I'd pay good money to see Eric in a Cheerio float tube.
Yeah.
I'll throw $5 into that.
Right. I'm bringing one to the next event.
He's going to have a sponsored Cheerio shirt. So where was I going with this?
You're letting the cat
String.
out of the bag.
Yeah, having 2 graphs, it comes down to your style. Each person on the screen has their own style of fishing. What prompted me to go with 2 graphs last year, I started it, was I actually got my forward-facing sonar, and I'm like, okay, I don't need my other graph on. I've got forward, I've got down live, I've got side imaging, I've got everything on this Garmin 93 SV. I've got everything. Well, I found myself from being trained old school on my 2D and my mapping and everything, I felt like I couldn't get the screen. I kept switching back and forth between 2 different things. And my 2 things that I switched for my style was kept switching between 2D and the forward-facing sonar. So that's what prompted me to run 2 graphs. I'm not much of a mapping guy because we've fished so many of these lakes out here that I know what everything is that I like to fish out here. I really don't, unless I'm trying to reference a waypoint of something that I've got marked. But for me, the reason I use my 2 graphs is one is always dedicated to forward-facing sonar. And then my other one is for my 2D and side imaging. And then lastly would be the mapping on that. But that unit is 2D and side imaging because I feel like it's important to be able to still have forward-facing sonar and still see 2D. That's just me. I'm really dialed in on 2D sonar. I don't know what it is. I can't work a computer. I can't work a cell phone, but man, old school 2D and understanding the cone angles, what you're seeing, where that fish is based on that cone, that gives me information to then dial things in on that forward-facing sonar. And recently, I've been really getting into the down live on my Garmin. That has been gold for me. I don't know how many guys are playing around with that. I'd love, yeah, Pong and Pitfall, Pong and Pitfall.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, I don't know. I'd love to shoot a little video on the down because I think it's something that
We
guys
need to
haven't
do that.
played with enough, on the live down. But I don't need any of you guys learning how to do that. I'm still trying to figure out how to beat you guys. So we'll keep that one close to our chest for now.
I will attest to this. You showed me some, and I'm an old fart, but you showed me some things on 2D sonar that I had never utilized it for before, and I still want to go out with you again and get another a second class on it just to understand it cleaner because it was one of the things that helped lead me to unloading forward facing for me because I wanted to really focus more heavily there. My sides and down imaging, I use that for structure gathering, right? I use that for information gathering. I'm looking for logs, I'm looking for rock piles, I'm looking for things like that with my side and such. And I can cover a lot of water with that in a hurry. And I can eat my Uncrustable at the same time and still mark stuff. Now that I'm back to Lowrance. Smuckers, hello. Where you at?
I wonder how
He's
much
a
money.
sucker for Schmuckers.
There you go. I wonder how much money the kayak community throws into those unwitches or whatever they're called.
Bro, the more I bring it up, the Uncrustables, yeah.
Uncrustables, yeah.
What the hell's an unwitch? What is that?
That's oh man, I was just back in Illinois, home of Jimmy John's. They have an unwitch, which is their sandwich. It's no lettuce, no bread.
Right. Oh, that sounds like it should belong in Boulder, but whatever.
No bread,
No
Well, it's
bread.
just,
lunch meat and lettuce. That's called a
yeah,
lettuce wrap, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. They call it an unwich. Yeah.
I don't want to get canceled. I've got 3 or 4 other responses, but I don't want to get canceled. So
Do it. Do it.
no, no. But yeah, man. So it's the whole piece on that 2D. You do have some like wicked knowledge on that stuff, man, and um, that's there's something to be said for that when you understand your 2D sonar much cleaner. It's what brought me back to Lowrance, man, because it's one of the best. One thing I wanted to mention that people don't pay attention to this very often, and they don't realize now. From an ex-computer geek, spent many years in the computer industry, and I'll tell you, I'm an old computer gamer as well.
Sorry.
Resolution matters. Okay, yeah, I went way beyond Atari. Resolution matters, and if you want to know why a Garmin 9 and a Garmin 10, why there's such a big difference, look at the resolution of these two devices. Now, with the higher resolution comes a higher power drain. You need to understand that. This is where Humminbird needs to, I don't know, contact Kim Jong Un or somebody and get themselves some better, semiconductors, because those Humminbird devices have the best resolution out there, but they are also the most power hungry devices on the planet. I had them literally kill my cranking battery on my brand new bass boat because I had too many of those damn Solixes running at one time. And the higher the resolution that you're going to put on a screen, it's going to pull and suck more power. So you better be willing to up that, when you go to those higher pieces. But there is a massive difference between the 9-inch and the 10-inch Garmin's. That 10-inch is it's like going to UHD compared to the old 1080p.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between that view. And man, when you're trying to separate pixels on a screen with forward facing or traditional 2D, that resolution truly matters. And when you got old eyes that
Yeah.
looks at a blurry screen right now, I need these for computering and anything dealing with, fine detail. It's why my stuff doesn't sit out on the forward of my kayak. It's why it's nice up and close so I can see it still. But yeah,
Yeah.
it matters, and it's there is something. That's why someone possibly might want to go to a second one, is just for better clarity, better view. If you're really trying to separate, pixel dots on your screen.
Yeah.
I don't know what the new trend with these graphs 3 feet in front of you on this giant bridge, like, and then once again, style. For me, I am constantly playing with my settings and playing with my graph, because every time I change depth, every time I change contour bottoms, every time I'm adjusting sensitivities, I'm adjusting the depth. I never have my stuff set on auto. I never let my thing reset and then the screen creates that line and then you get new information. Don't do that. You're killing yourself. Adjust your down constantly. I don't know how anybody, like when I come over a rock pile and I see something, or I instantly catch a fish over some sort of cover or structure, I sit right here and I hit mark. I don't have to go, oh, well, I got the fish. Now I got to reach 3 feet in front of me to hit mark. I don't understand that new fad, but you know what? I love it. You guys keep doing it, struggle, and the more you suck, the better I am.
Maybe they got long arms, Jim. Maybe they
That's
just got
true.
long
That's
arms.
true. Not everybody's 5'2" like I
Yeah.
am.
No, that was
I'm
good.
5'3", don't lie.
There's three things there. So the settings, I 100% agree. I never keep my stuff on auto. I'm twitching. Depending on the particles you have in the water, you go to Truman versus here, it's your settings are night and day.
Yep.
And even on, if you do a 2-day tournament on the same lake, your settings can be night and day if it rains. It's crazy. The second one, I'm always moving my transducer. Even if my jig's in there, if I move my transducer a little bit, I'll get a little bit better return on that jig. So I know that, okay, my jig's not, because that you're within, depending how far out you are, you might be a 5-foot beam, might be in a 15-foot. So I know that if I'm constantly moving that thing and I get some better feedback, I'm more dialed in onto where that is, and I'm more dialed in on what that fish is doing. Now I can know, hey, is that fish moving forward? Is he moving left and right? Is he moving back? And then also, I'll scan back and forth the transducer, not looking at fish, but looking at the bottom, and I'll see weeds, and I'll see a dot. And Caleb, we had him on talking about it. The little humps that are on the bottom that you'll see sometimes, you'll see fish that way, that if you're not moving that thing around, the fish aren't moving. But you notice it's one of those things in nature that's different than everything else. And so it stands out. And then the last thing is resolution is important. You have a lag as well. I'll set the hook before I even see the fish sometimes. And so, I'm off a lot of times. There's nothing there. But sometimes I'll see them, if they are screaming up at that bait, before I feel it, I'll set the hook, because there is a lag, at least on a 93, from the time that they hit to the time that you feel that bite. Jake, what does he got? Yeah.
I want to know that bait. I want to see that. Great comment, Jake. But man, what's that bait is in your profile picture? What's that? Some sort of a Japanese octopus?
Jake's lure, man.
That is his wacky tons, I believe. Jake's so I'm actually going out tomorrow. Jake's he makes a ton of baits, obviously.
Does he make that thing that's in his picture?
He does. So
crazy.
It's like a Senko with the balls on it.
Yeah.
He has that's the baton, and he's got a wacky ton, which is basically like a Senko, and then there's those balls on. So that meaty part's in the center, and then on the outside of it, it kind of goes out like a Senko. I'm actually going out tomorrow. I'm just gonna do, I think, 2 rods. I'm gonna fish forward facing sonar, and Jake's got a new bait. I won't release the video until he releases it, but I'm gonna try just a bunch of different jig heads, and then
I'll admit, so I had Jake on the podcast a while back. He came on and was talking about, different areas. I got to admit something, Jake. A lot of the I was starting to wonder, though, looking at some of the soft play, I bet they work, but tell me, bro, you got to admit now, was there any influence from like an Adam and Eve catalog for any of these? Because some of these things are a little suspect, dog. I'm just saying. If they catch fish, they catch fish. I'm down. I'll throw the hell out of them. You know what I mean? But
oh boy, yeah.
That's
once
good.
Again, I'm going to keep it G, but I had a good one. I had a zinger there, like they used to say. There you go.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives a new name to the beaver. I'll say it. Gives a new name to the beaver.
Right. Just saying.
I got you.
Jake's Lure Joint. Let's give a little shout out there for Jake. Jake is an active military small business owner, veteran-owned small business. Jake's Lure Joint.com, maybe?
Yeah, actually,
sure is.
I stayed with Jake last night to split up my drive back here, and I was in his garage, his shop, working with him. We poured some baits. I got to pour my own baits that I'm going to throw tomorrow. It was super fun. But I think Jake has 4 or 5 microwaves now. He's gone from scaling this, from nothing to.
It's like a Breaking Bad thing going, except with fishes.
Does he do his own molds? Does he have options to create molds?
So that's what this forward-facing thing that he made is his own mold that he created, and so is I think the baton is, as well as the wacky-ton, I believe. So that's kind of how he's setting himself apart. Is he's actually going through CAD and designing his own molds for everything. It's not.
That's awesome.
It's not. This is a speed crawl, or this is whatever. I'm buying a mold for it. He's not, doing the do it thing. He's actually going out and crafting them, making them, testing them. Pretty cool.
That's awesome, man.
That's I've got something.
And Jake appreciated it. Yeah, he appreciated it.
Oh, Jake's not PG. You can throw whatever.
Right.
Bro, my daughter's last words to him were, work on your language. I think it's the last one. Said bye, work on your language. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Uncle Jake.
Well, listen, gentlemen, I'm sure we could do this all night here, but we've been rolling a good hour 40. This has been a fantastic. I love the fact that what we went after this time is just jumping straight into fishing stuff, talking Colorado fishing, talking general. Inevitably, as anglers, we got pulled into the forward-facing, stuff, but there's no debate to it. There's no chat about it, no good, bad. It's just, using it, man, using the tools that are out there that are available if you want to. And I think what's awesome is you got 2 guys here that take our money using it. And I think what's awesome is you got 2 guys here that take our money using it. Jim, I don't think you rely on it maybe as much as others,
No.
but you use it where you need it. Matt, you're like rising to the top of being a guy that, is being known as someone to chat with that is starting to understand it and really get into it. I don't touch it. I sold mine, so I appreciate the perspective from everybody on this. It's a good deal. And I still believe could be just, I'm an idiot, but whatever. I still believe I can beat you suckers without it out here in Colorado. I will admit though, and Jim was proud of me on this. I've got the love back, right? Small tangent here. I've got my Colorado gear rigged out. I've got 2 or 3 versions. I'm running. I had the opportunity with Eric watching. This is awesome. I had the opportunity. I picked up a few of Eagle Claw's new rods, the Flyover series, very affordable set of rods that I'm going to tell you right now. I won't even tell you what the price point of these things are. And you look at the quality of these rods and it's going to blow you away. These things are meticulously put together. They're really, really nice rods. I'm super excited about them. And I've got a drop shot, I got a Ned rig, and I've got a finesse jig rod. That finesse jig, I'm using it for a few other things, just light lure stuff I can use on it, right? But at any rate, I got a Colorado rig set up here where I now have my selection of this is when I fish in Colorado. And here's the other 28 rods over here for when I fish in Nebraska and Kansas.
Nice.
But these 4 will be Colorado only over here. One thing I wanted before we wrap this up, I wanted to share this with you guys because, as you know, the tournament thing for me, the lull had just gotten too far. It kind of blew over inside my head. And it's like, okay, we got to figure out what the problem. Well, what the problem was, one of many issues, I stopped hunting. In the old days, as I was looking back through memories, this is where the social media actually was coming in handy because I can look back through the old memories as they pop up. The hunt for these fish was the love, man. Going to a lake and knowing this is not going to be easy and I'm going to need to figure them out. Yesterday, this worked. Today, this may not work. So I got to hunt for them. I had lost the love of the hunt. The hunt for these fish, the challenge piece. I was showing up to tournaments and going through the steps because I've done it so much. I've been, down this road. I was going through these steps and all it took was the slightest little inkling to make me go, oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, this is the next step. Now the next step is this. And now I go cash a check and then everybody's happy. And so that's why I was 2-3 hours into this, I was getting spun out. Because all of a sudden, what happens on tournament day when the shit doesn't go the way you expect it to, my brain wasn't in it to hunt them. My brain wasn't there. My brain was like, wait a minute, this is not right. And I was losing my mental game completely on this. So it was the hunt. And this couple weeks here of going out and just fishing, went up to Lon Hagler yesterday. Fishing stingy up there, but it was a great time. It was still the hunt. It's back and I'm ready to, to push with this. I'm back to tinkering with rods and reels again, and enjoying that. Now it's not work to go out there and re-rig some stuff. And I got a new reel from Abu Garcia. I got one of the Revo X's in. So I'm
Nice.
going to get that lined up and set. So yeah, if you run into that, don't ever lose that love, man. Don't lose the hunt of trying to figure these bastards out. If it were just science, well, then none of us would probably be sitting here right now, right?
Yeah.
We'd all have walls that look like Jim's and Matt's trophy wall, and we'd be doing something else, talking about maybe kayak motors more. I don't know what I'd be doing.
Well, you're absolutely right because the hunt is everything. And I know, Matt, you host a podcast, and obviously we're here with Eugene. There's a whole podcast waiting to happen on just the style or the procedure of pre-fishing, which I think could really open up a lot of anglers' eyes, and it would do our fisheries and everybody else in the tournament a hell of a lot of a favor to not go out there and beat the hell out of these fish, because pre-fishing has absolutely nothing to do with fishing. Pre-fishing is finding fish that you can then execute on tournament day. You can find them in spot A. And sure, as we said before, Friday fish and Wednesday fish are not the same fish as Saturday. But I can tell you, if I find fish on the corner of a dam on a Thursday or a Friday, and I go there on Saturday and they're not there, they're not 7 miles up the river, or they're somewhere still in that area. Now you need to break it down. Just because you win pre-fish and you jack every fish in the lake and 25 guys are out there pre-fishing, you're not doing any of us any favors to on come tournament day. We all have to learn the breakdown of pre-fishing. There's a strategy to it and there's a technique to it.
So this was a comment from earlier in the show that Eric said that I wanted to throw because it goes right to your point.
Yeah.
You know, and that's very true. Guys that go out and wear out things that, you know, I was that Trinidad deal. I was so conscious to me, man, about I caught one here and I backed off. I moved 50 yards up, caught another one. I'm like, okay, that's screaming pattern to me. Another 50 yards up, caught another one. That's a pattern. I'm out. And I left, right? It's like I don't want to burn a spot down if they're grouping up. Still didn't work, but that's my normal routine is I'm there to get the lay of the land and just kind of see what the hell's going on. You know, so in a lot of cases, pre-fishing too much, I used to do 3-4 days. That used to kill me. Unless it was new bodies of water in the boat where I was running 60 miles like Old Hickory down in Tennessee. Shit, I ran 40 miles up that damn thing to go find grass one year. You know, just because I couldn't find any grass down there. Just keep driving.
Wow.
I think it was like in Kentucky or something, and I found some.
Nice.
I think the greatest angler, you know, in any local club or just in general, is the guy who can adapt the fastest to change. 100%. And that's what separates us from the elites right there. How fast those guys can make a decision. And that decision isn't just luck. That decision is based on facts that they've seen on their sonar, right? Like Matt said earlier, he can tell a walleye, and I 100% agree with him. Last year, I wouldn't be able to tell a fish is a fish is a fish. That's not true. I can tell the way a fish is swimming, what's a trout, what's a walleye, and what's a bass. So when I'm pre-fishing and I find a school, I can tell if there's bass in that school just by dropping down a bait and not even setting the hook on it, just watching them react to it, the way they swim,
Right.
the way the trout come in, they hit it and they swim off, and they're very erratic. Bass kind of lumber in and just whoop, and they eat it. And like he said, the walleye come up, they bounce, they turn, and then they come back and they look again. So
Do a pirouette.
Pre-fishing, I don't even have to set a hook to know if I'm on bass because I've got such in tune with my electronics. Once again, using forward-facing sonar, not relying on it, but using it as a tool.
Agreed.
Yeah.
They are crackheads.
Yes.
Well, cool, man. I love the idea. We should try to put a few guys together. We'll get the TPO team together. Get Jim and I. We'll see if we can put together some idea of a pre-fishing suggestions and such.
Let's go Wednesday.
And,
I'll put it right out here. I'm thinking about going to Horsetooth on Wednesday because once again, Gene, with your setup that you just described with all your new rods and everything, nothing's going to put it to the better test than Horsetooth. Horsetooth is probably, it's the worst fishery, but it's the best fishery for the application that you're trying to.
I wish I could. I have a Heroes on the Water event on Wednesday, though. We're going to be at Chatfield Gravel Ponds, but I could sneak in another day if another day works out.
Let's talk green room or text me, call me. You know.
Copy that. Yeah,
Hey,
I would love to, sir.
Can I put something out real quick before
Absolutely.
we hop off?
Yeah, the attorney.
I'd get in trouble if I didn't. So if you're in Colorado, or even if you're not, if it's a great cause, there is a 2-day tournament this weekend at South Park, which is known as some of the best fishing in the world, not just Colorado, for specifically trout, pike. So we're having a 2-day tournament out there, Colorado Kayak Fishing Club. It's $60, and that includes both days. And they're giving away a Titan X 12.5, which is a pretty sweet prize. You do have to be present for that one.
Thank you, Waterline Sports.
Yep, yes. Waterline Sports and Native on that. They're also giving away some rods and reels from Dynamic Lures, stepped up really big. Tons of giveaways. Right now, it's pretty light. So your chance of winning a Titan X is actually really good. There's also some giant swim baits that are going to be given away that Jeremy's made, handmade glide baits, really awesome. One's a pike, some trout. But this is a place where you can go, even if you're not someone that likes to do the multi-species thing. If you want to go out there and just throw a chatterbait and catch probably your PB pike or trout, they just bite like crack out there. There are trout over 26 inches. We had a tournament out there. Brett Wendling caught over 26-inch trout, and then there are pike well over 40 inches there. So, and there's tiger muskies there. Fish of 1,000 casts. So, please do consider signing up. The charity for the year is Cast for Kids. They take children with special needs out on the water on fishing trips, and all of the money from that tournament is going to that. So there's no prize for cash for it. Everything's going into that, and we're really excited to do that this year. So,
dude, this was a bucket list on my schedule. I marked it. It's lit up on my calendar, and it was about a month and a half ago that I realized, oh shit, my mother turns 90 this year.
Yeah.
I'm literally leaving Saturday morning for Minnesota. We'll be there. We celebrate on Sunday, and then I'll be back on Monday late, coming in to do the live show here. But yeah, man, I folks, if you're out there, get signed up. Go do this. These are two amazing bodies of water. This thing is it's for a great cause up there. And I hear there's a cornhole gig going on I can't stand the name of that, by the way. Beanbag. You're playing beanbags, all right? Just say it. Beanbag game, beanbag toss, whatever. It's I hear there's a game there going on after Saturday night. Is that what it is? Something like that?
Yeah, Saturday afternoon after the tournament. For Saturday. It's Saturday and Sunday. So yeah, Saturday evening it's out at Alex's family's place. It's a great time out there. If you're even just new to Colorado and you want to meet some people that fish in the community, there's going to be a ton of people just hanging out, having a good time, and kind of camping out. So it's a good time. You can go to Tourney X is where you can sign up. Just type in CKFC for Colorado Kayak Fishing Club, and it'll say charity event at South Park.
Yeah, and like Matt said, don't let that it's a multi-species deal confuse you. Like you got to go up there with ultralights and power bait and all kinds of stuff. You bass guys that are out there that fish bass strictly, bring your gear up there and go have fun. I mean, those fish are big enough where you don't have to bring anything special. You're already set up for a fish of a lifetime up there. It's gonna be a good event for sure.
So we'll leave this here. This is awesome stuff. It's this weekend, folks. Tourney X, you heard the man. Go get signed up. Check it out. It's for a great cause. CKFC does a ton. They're a huge supporter of the TPO and the mission. Its members have made it possible for us to keep doing what we do out here. So yeah, go out, support these guys, support the Cast for Kids deal. That is a super cool deal. Once I have like a normal human schedule, I'm gonna look into trying to be volunteering at some of those and see if I can start jumping into some of that. So Eric's leaving us with a good question here. Whoop, that's not it. Eric, right here. Anything you dudes want me to get photos of at ICAST? ICAST is coming up. And Eric's going to be down there with Eagle Claw Trocar.
Yeah.
Anything you? All right.
I want a picture of Eric on a float tube on the lake in Orlando. They always go to.
Cheerios float tube.
Cheerios.
A Cheerio float tube.
Yeah. No, if there's any new forward facing, I don't know if it's going to come out yet, but if they do release a new Humminbird or a new like the next gen, I'd love to see what that is. Or I mean, Eric's fishy, whatever he thinks is good.
Yeah, for sure. Just he knows the deal. LVS 36s, right? Isn't that the next progression?
No, those are out. Those are the saltwater ones, but guys are using them now.
I thought that was a 63. Maybe it is a 36.
Oh, maybe you might be right.
I don't know. I might get my numbers back.
Back in college, they called him Eric. I put the O in Speedo Ali. So
visual, I did not need to see.
Yeah, that's a gruesome one.
We need a shirtless picture of him so we can have Chen and then Eric.
Oh my God, yes.
Both of them.
Eric would be holding Chen while Chen's holding Crappie. That would be good.
Eric would be holding Chen like Eric's like Chen's holding a crappie.
Exactly.
He's got Chen by the lip.
Oh no, hail damaged fenders.
Oh,
The show is spiraling out of control at this point.
nice.
No, Eric. So the only thing I want a picture of is when you get back, brother. Let's get you on the podcast, man. Let's get you come on here and talk about what you saw down there. Let's talk Eagle Claw. Let's talk Eric and the champ. Let's have you guys on here. That would be a great show as always. And that way you don't have to wear your fingers out with all the great punchlines. You can just say them.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. This has been an awesome 2-hour long show here. The guys at Waypoint TV are going to love this because we're going to have all kinds of ads in this one. There'll be like 22 ads in this on this audio download, unfortunately, because I think it's like every 15 minutes, something like that's got to go. So, yeah, going to be an awesome setup there. But yeah, you guys, this was a great show. Need to do this more often. I like this. It's one of the advantages of having a little lull in our action here, but I'll be looking to get out, and you guys stay fishy, as Matt tells us on the CKFC podcast. It's what you say, right? Stay fishy. No. That's Dust Off that does it. He says stay fishy.
Yeah.
See, all you
Brandon.
all you pilot guys.
I don't
I
have a
get you
saying.
confused.
I need Flanagan to come up with a saying for me. He'll come up with something good.
He's going to get royalties sooner or later between nicknames and sayings. Yeah, we need Flanagan chipping in there. Thank you, gentlemen, so very much, folks. And I'll make sure to smash that subscribe button. Subscribe to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. Subscribe to the True Patriot Outfitters. YouTube is a big, big help. Even if you don't watch YouTube, man, subscribers. We're making that run towards that 1,000 subscriber list, man. That is a big, big deal that we're really working hard to try to get there. We refuse to get in anything fake on the subscriber list. We are going purely organic with this thing. That is our commitment to it. The content is going to remain. The mission's going to stay on path. So anything you can do to help us out, we appreciate that. It's a massive help to us. Gentlemen, thank you so very much. We're going to go ahead and roll this thing out. Any final goodbyes you have there for anybody?
Bye, Mom. She's not watching.
Well, I think you have a new mission now to get Mom to watch the podcast.
There you go.
Folks at home, tight lines. Be safe.